Man, you're with Julian on the Brown Note and a review, much belatedly, of The Eternals. So this time last year, I was giving Chloe Zhao's film the first ever new release 10 out of 10 on this show in its history, and it was Nomadland was my film of the year. Excuse me. And here we are with a very different kettle of fish. I mentioned at the time that obviously Kevin Feige, is that how you say it, was named by, I think, Ben Affleck or someone like that as the greatest movie producer of all time. Something that holds some water given his tenure over 20-odd Marvel films had generated an awful lot that was excellent and very little that was poor. Certainly there was some elements to those films that were bad. The odd Thor 2, Iron Man 2 cropping up here and there. But in general, it was an amazingly high success rate. So I said he's obviously chosen a really, he's seen something in Chloe Zhao, who'd only helmed very low budget films. So The Eternals was an attempt to break away from that main Thor, Iron Man, Captain America led sort of world into bringing in a new raft of people that will, sustain a new raft of movies, because they will never stop until they until they have several $200 million flops, and which I keep praying for, as I really want this comic book dominance era to end. And there's been a couple of interesting ones, and this is probably the most interesting fail. It's the lowest rated Marvel film on Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic to date. It's about a celestial being, which is a godlike character, who creates a race called the Eternals to look after planet Earth from another race called the Deviants, who are remarkably ill-defined in this. They do look all right, though. Production-wise, production design on this isn't one of the issues, really. So they arrive on Earth 5000 BC or something like that, and they fight the Deviants. And around 1500 AD, they've defeated them completely, and then they realise that the Eternals, this group of people that all have very poorly defined superhero attributes. So each one of them's got a special skill, which range from useful to bizarre. Decide to go their separate ways. They don't really have a reason to be involved anymore. Move to the present day, and the re-emergence of the Deviants brings all of the Eternals back together, and at that point they realise that there's a lot more complexity to why they were brought to Earth in the first place and their battle with the Deviants. There's a lot more nuance, and it isn't the story that they've been led to believe at all. Which is probably the best part of the whole film, actually, that whole sequence. So this is a film that gets virtually every single thing wrong. The number one thing that this film gets wrong is it's the Star Wars Phantom Menace paradox. Even 40 years after Star Wars, Hollywood still doesn't understand that people flock to watch Star Wars and love it. Decades later, not because of special effects, but the number one reason is the cast. They created a cast of iconic, charismatic characters that had great chemistry, that we loved spending time with. This is the embodiment of every single box office blockbuster success that's perennial. It's why we like Back to the Future and why no one really cares about Avatar. It's why we like the Avengers, because those main Avengers were all strong enough characters on their own to helm a movie, and they had great chemistry when they came together. The Eternals are incredibly boring actors with no chemistry and no charisma, and they don't hold together well, and that's terminal from the word go. But it is a film that doesn't get anything right. It is a very dull film. It's a very flat film. It's disjointed in its tone and its progression. It has enormously distracting flashes forward and backwards. Just when you're getting into the vibe, where there's virtually no vibe, it will jump backwards into the past and you just lose everything. The cast is near uniformly bad. I thought Gemma Chan, who plays Cersei, the lead character, I found her character to be extremely wooden. And her relationship with Richard Madden as Icarus. Richard Madden, I thought, was one of the few characters that actually had some spark in him. I found the relationship between the two to be not exactly a passion affair, I'm afraid. Some of the others were extremely bad. Lisa McHugh as Sprite, who plays this Peter Pan child character, I found to be very, very cringy. And Barry Keoghan as Droog, I think he's been really good in some films where, like, I want to say we need to talk about Kevin, but it was the one with Colin Farrell in The Killing of the Sacred Deer. He was super scary in that film, but he struggles to lose that character. So he's been not so good in other films I've seen him in. And I found him a bit cringy here. The story itself is like there's somewhere in the middle. There's like a 20-minute bit where they actually reveal the secrets of the past, and that is all. That's the best part of the film. But either side of it, it's just flat. It's just got no energy, no intrigue, and you do not fall in love with the characters or want to engage with them or see them again. There's a holdover from the Avengers. I think Don Lee's in the Avengers, and he does stand out. And the two old timers are nearly there. Salma Hayek, if she was given more to do, could have been good. And I thought the Angelina Jolie, the idea behind her character having mental illness, in that she was like Professor X in Logan, where his powers are so great, but his mind's gone. So he's so dangerous now. That's her character in this, and I thought that was the most powerful element in the film. And Angelina Jolie, I thought she was fine in it. But everyone else is so flat, often cringy, and some of the action is reasonably well shot, but the main deviant villains are just barely defined nemesis. So they don't really add up to much. And the kicker is when it came to the denouement over the end, it's better than, but very analogous to the original Justice League, where those sort of things or ribbons are coming out, and it was garbage. And this is nearly that. It's a very messy and it's not compelling to watch. It's just, you've been down that road where there's an evil entity about to destroy the world and they get their one-upmanship. Sometimes they can make you care because you care about the characters, but they don't make you care because you don't care about the characters, and it's all a bit messy. So Chloe Zhao's stamp on this is apparently that she brings a little bit of soul and diversity. I thought I'd be put off by the diversity angle. Hey, look at this character, they're non-binary. Hey, look at this character, they're gay. Just shoehorned in. I didn't really find that here. I thought that it was all relatively well handled. But they're just boring. They're just not entertaining to spend time with. It's like there's some guilty pleasure ones. I mean, even in Thor and Iron Man 2, two terrible Marvel films, you still have some really engaging, entertaining characters to float you through. But here, the pull to rewatch it is next to zero, because you're kind of like, I don't even want to see any of that again. So Eternals is definitely bottom tier Marvel. And I reviewed it's really, really bad Venom 2 last week and gave it 3.5 out of 10. I'm going to give this 3.5 out of 10, but in almost every different way. Venom 2 was a much worse film in some ways, but it had Tom Hardy, it had Michelle Williams, and it had moments where you were engaged in the characters and the dynamism of what was happening on screen. That just never happens here. So The Eternals is a damp squib, 3.5 out of 10.